Outages continue to go everywhere. We're seeing it in the cell networks. Now we're seeing it on blockchains. This is getting crazy. We're going to break it all down for you guys. You're going to love it. My name is Paul Barron. Welcome back into Tech Path. I want to thank our sponsor today, and that is Tangem. Self-custody, one of the best places to go for your crypto. And it's a great tool, I think, when you guys are considering self-custody, because this is the perfect place for you to start to store your Bitcoin, your Ethereum, whatever you might want to put over there. You can do that just by going in and starting your journey. All you have to do is click that Get Tangem, get the 3-card set. It's very simple. That way you always have a backup, and it works in tandem with the app. Super slick. You guys will like it. Check it out. Use our link down below to help the channel. All right, a couple of things happened today, and of course, one of the biggest ones was Avalanche. Avalanche now suffering an outage, failed to produce a block for 5 hours. So this was a pretty big deal, and we're fans of Avalanche. Not a good look for the blockchain, and not a good look, I think, for crypto in general. All right, so as you can see, here is the outage time that occurred right here, and major outage 5 hours 24 minutes. So that was a big one. And if you look at the culprit of this right here, comes in from Kevin. Without ACP-13, this is a new proposal out there to essentially solve this problem. But eventually, with ACP-13, subnets should not be affected. Subnets were actually affected out there. Beam, of course, was affected, so we did see that due to the AVAX C-chain current outage. Beam subnet currently not available. Other things that were affected or could be affected, Pulsar was also, remember, Pulsar is a test net. That's another one that kind of plays into it. So you can see that this is an issue that has to be resolved. So they need to hurry up and get this ACP-13 resolved. You can kind of see the thing right here with Pulsar. Remember, they are actually out there on the blockchain continuing to mine within the game itself. So that's something that continues on whether you have these outages or not. Those kind of things are continuing to drive transactions. Here's another point right here. Today's outage, good example of why we need the ACP-13. This is a subnet-only validator, which will improve Avalanche's network's fault tolerance by relieving subnets and all that, primary network validation duty. So this is good, but I don't understand why this wasn't done earlier. That's, I guess, a bad issue for Avalanche. And if you look at, in general, almost every blockchain out there has had problems. Solana, of course, is notorious for it, but there's been others as well. All right, so the reason that network validity is so important are projects like this. This is a good example of one that is in the wings of actually selecting a blockchain. So here's Mavia, Heroes of Mavia. You guys have probably seen this one. This one ran up on the charts. There was a big win on it. A lot of influencers have been talking about this in the gaming sector. And what they're trying to do is figure out what is going to be the layer 2 that they're going to select. So they're going to be doing this selection here just around the corner. And they haven't really tied it together. But if you look at their next tweet here, it shows the ones that are potential. So you've got Avalanche in here. There's Immutable, Ronin also in there. But this is going to be a very critical point, I think, for many projects out there that are going to start to weigh these things in terms of what blockchains they're going to select to actually operate on. So this is not good timing for Avalanche for sure. Now, to look at other chains out there, you've got Polygon caused a brief outage. That was Matic FIP. There's always going to be a little bit of turmoil in the price of tokens. Immutable also was down. This kind of just shows some of the down detections that were available here. Then you had Arbitrum, which was really one of the biggest outages that we've ever seen. So this one was a huge one, and it also affected the token price, 4% decline when this one occurred. These are the problems, I think, in early stage that always represent themselves as, learning opportunities, but also growing pains with a lot of these projects. Then here's Optimism, also an outage that was unrelated to their scheduled maintenance here. And then guess what? There was even a Cardano network outage. Now, granted, very short, very small, but it was an outage. So how does that affect you? How does it affect the way games, the way projects, all sorts of utility, when we start to see businesses start to go in this direction around using the blockchain? These networks are going to have to become bulletproof. Here was Hedera, I think one of the more solid ones out there. Also, mainnet shut down. Hedera dropped a dramatic amount during this period of time when that occurred. So that was back in 23. Everybody kind of runs into this at some point. There's going to be a technology. I mean, you go back to the situation with AT&T this week. I still think that was most likely an update. You know, the 3 a.m. signal, typically when you roll out an update, a software update, that affected the entire country, the United States. You know, so imagine the amount of systems that were affected by that. Blockchain is just now starting to scrape the surface. So I think this is the time that all these issues do have to be concerned. Now, the one chain that hasn't had an outage, but has had some other issues in terms of exploits has been, you know, Ronin. So you could look at Ronin as being an alternative. So I think for project developers and people out there trying to figure out what route is the best way to take, you know, like what the situation with Mavia is, those are the things that you have to take and put into consideration. These issues continue to become a problem. And I think right now, what we've got to work on and understand is whether that is stress on the networks, not necessarily having all these protocols in place, or we have all sorts of opportunities within changing something within these networks that need to happen faster. These are issues where software, which I still believe is going to become the thing for the next era of the internet, have to be solved. So we'll see how it happens. And, you know, listen, this is still happening on regular Web 2 products out there all the time. But I think when you're dealing with the money, and especially when you're dealing with assets and things of that nature, it's going to get a little bit more heated for sure. All right, so I've got a clip here that is from the Honeyland CEO. And the reason I'm bringing that one in, I mean, it doesn't have anything to do with the Avalanche, but what it has to do with is the selection process of how projects jump onto blockchains. And he mentioned some very intriguing facts here that I'll talk about here in a second. Listen in.
So where are the transactions taking place? There were a total of 18,500 transactions from our NFT collections in January. 7,200 of those took place inside of Honeyland the game. 11,300, and these are rounded, of course, but about 11,300 took place on Magic Eden. So still more volume of transactions taking place on Magic Eden than in Honeyland. A third of the transactions on Magic Eden are being, from a dollar standpoint, are being done in HXD, and 2/3 are being done in Sol.
So what he's hitting on there is the idea of community. And if you think about all these different chains, community is going to become a big part of it. What he's mentioning there is Magic Eden. The reason that's a Solana community. And I think that's something to factor into these decision processes for a lot of these projects that are trying to figure out what blockchain to go with. So if you go back to Heroes of Mavia, who's in the throes of making that selection now, Avalanche could still be a player. Immutable-x could be a player here. Ronin could be a player. I mean, there's a lot of opportunities that could play into this. Now, Arbitrum is one. So if you look at Arbitrum, this is a good example of grant programs that are used to really entice projects, devs, etc. This may look good on the front, I think, for games and different kinds of projects. But at the end, I think it boils down to community. Who has the strongest community that can benefit? Because you have to think about long-term here going forward. So whether it is an Avalanche, whether it's an Immutable, whether it's a Ronin, or others out there, I think devs are now starting to really consider all of these factors, not just necessarily the uptimes and the situation like that, but the community that supports that, because those are much more long-term approaches. So this represents a very interesting time, I think, in blockchain, that I think everybody that is building products out there today, maybe companies that are considering using a chain for something they're doing in the retail sector, or businesses that are thinking about real-world asset tokenization. This is a critical time. So we're going to continue to watch it and get you guys as much data as we can. If you're not part of our Diamond Circle, make sure and get in right now. It's a great place to get additional content, and we also drop some additional content over there from podcasts, videos, research, all sorts of stuff. All you have to do is click the link down below. And of course, follow me out there on X, @PaulBaron. We'll catch you next time right here on TechPath.